First and foremost, I want to welcome each of you to this Central Ohio Reentry Week of events. The Central Ohio Reentry Week, the county commissioners and the justice policy and programs have brought us together for such a time as this to discuss very, very pertinent and a very important issue that is stimulating our communities, reentry. So I want each of you to introduce yourselves, share what it is that you do and how you are engaged in the work of reentry. And we're going to have a discussion centered around reentry and the importance of reentry. So we always start with ladies first. So Dr. Washington, would you please introduce yourself?
My name is Latrice Washington, and I have my PhD in American government, public administration, electoral politics. And I am a tenured professor at Otterbein University. I've been employed there for 21 years. I teach all things politics. So essentially, in the community, I do a lot of education around public policy, how the government is structured, dealing with myths versus realities, and then how to mobilize and try to combat, especially dealing with a system that, if we're brutally honest, it was never designed for people that look like me in the first place. And so sometimes it takes a lot of additional proactive planning to avoid and bypass certain obstacles, but also there's a certain level of not just tenacity, but composure that oftentimes is required of us that may not necessarily be of some others. I also work and volunteer my time with an organization called Central Ohio Parent Leadership Institute, where we take individuals who are parents in the community. We believe parents are already leaders in their homes, and we're teaching them various skill sets so that they can create their nonprofits, their programs, so they can go out into the community and address needs that they believe are there. One thing I will share that many people don't know about me is I am the society would say stepdaughter, but my father was a recidivist. So clearly, and I've been in institutions where I had to be patted down, where cakes were chopped through, but he had a support system. And we stuck with him until he got to the place, with the help of God, to understand that that criminal mentality and that lifestyle that he had grown up in was not what he was called to live. And he raised his family to do better. And so we started to expect better of him. And so fortunately now he's been employed for a very long time, legitimately. But so I know both sides, the academic side, but I'm also an individual who's had to go in to visit. And so I know what that is like as well. And I've also seen him have to navigate after trying to rebuild and kind of rebuild reputation and still being judged for what his past was. And also, I guess I will say, Reverend Fitzgerald, I was the political social justice minister at Mount Olivet Baptist Church for 21 years.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you for being with us today and taking time out of your schedule to be here. Brother Cheney, if you would, please.
Okay, my name is George Cheney. I'm a practicing attorney. I've been practicing for 30 years. I moved to Columbus, Ohio in 2016. I work in the federal courts. So I have, as we say, a courtside seat, oftentimes dealing with issues of people charged with federal crimes. But before I got to Columbus, I worked in the federal courts in New Orleans, which is my hometown. And before I was a federal public defender, I worked in private practice, had my own practice where I represented people charged with crime. So I have probably 28 of the 30 years that I've practiced law have been involved in criminal justice issues and criminal defense work. Like Ms. Washington, I've also had the experience of family members being incarcerated and then transitioning out of those spaces and then trying to help them to rebuild their lives. And I know how important that process is.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, Mr. Cheney, Brother Cheney, you're
Yes.
also a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
I am.
I thought that was important that we mentioned that, but you also attend what I hear is one of the greatest churches in this city.
A fabulous church,
yeah,
Christian Valley.
Okay. I thought I knew that. I heard that from somewhere. So
yes,
it's a pleasure. Thank you, Counselor. I know that you are traveling this week, and I'm grateful that you took time out of your busy schedule to be with us today. It speaks volumes to the passion that you have for the constituents of our great city. So thank you.
My pleasure.
Yes,
and
sir.
great and glad to participate today.
Pastor Potts.
Awesome. Hey, I am Pastor Antoine Potts from here in Columbus, Ohio. Pastor the Church of Adoration, the greatest church on earth, Adoration and Peace Baptist Church here in Columbus, Ohio. Right there, we were on the Whittier and 22nd area, right there, not too far from the governor of that neighborhood, Pastor Lamar. In saying that, I'm an example of the reentry program because I did 3 years in prison when I was younger, probably about 20, going on 23 years ago. And I was an example of somebody getting out of prison and not getting many opportunities and not being able to get jobs because of having that felony on your background. So I grew into a passion of me coming up with programming. Thank God I had a support system, as the brother and sister said prior. My father is attorney Byron L. Potts. I did go to college and I got a political science degree, a bachelor's in political science, and got a paralegal degree. And my father hired me as a paralegal and gave me an opportunity to change my whole life. Thank God that he had that for me, because what I needed was a consistent job, because it would have been easy for me to try to do whatever else. But because he had that for me, that opened the door. So what that did was that gave me a passion to create a program called the Entrepreneur Program, where felons or anyone out here that are underemployed, that are looking for opportunity to, one, get training for interviews, get trainings for resumes. Also, if you finish our program and you want to start a business, we'll help you get your business plan together, and in turn, help you get that started off the ground some type of way. So we just really, that's my main focus right now, is helping these gentlemen that's getting out of prison to come and find, either get training to be able to get jobs, or get insight on how to develop their own businesses, because right now is a time for them to bring their thoughts to reality. So that's my thing. Also, we do a parenting program for the reentry coming out, how to get back into, because a lot of them are not with their quote, say, baby mothers, if you will. So we want to create a firm fatherhood program to help them re-enter into being the father after being absent. So those are some of the main things that I'm focused on. That's my passion. I'm just a living example of how you can turn nothing into something, because I had felonies on my background. I completed my task. I went to prison, came out, struggled for a little bit. Now I have nothing on my background. Everything is clear. Everything is, erased, if you will. Thank the Lord. And now I'm a district manager for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. So God is just opening doors. So I'm a living example of the reentry. So that's my passion. And I was so excited. I haven't been able to sleep, bro, Newt, while you called me. I haven't been able to sleep because this is a passion for me. Me and my father, that this is what we looking, this is where it's at. This is right on target and right on time, because it's a shift in the world and in the community and what's happening. So thank you for the opportunity of me being able to just be on this show with you, special people.
And thank you. And Brother Potts, I've watched you for years, and you've been a model to a lot of young people, doing coaching and mentoring. And so we're grateful to have you here with us today to share your wisdom and your insights as well. Pastor Dr. Victor Marco Davis is with us. Pastor Davis.
Pastor Fitzgerald, my brother and friend, and to the rest of you ministers of the gospel, we're so thankful to have this opportunity to be with you today. I pastor the Trinity Baptist Church here in Columbus, Ohio, and for 30 plus years under the leadership of the late Reverend Nelson Crawley, we serviced the county jail system with worship services. And as a part of that worship service experience at Johnson Pike and CBCF on Alum Creek, we were allowed to go into the prisons, have worship service. And when those who were in transition toward reentry made a commitment to Christ, we were able to bring them into our church on Sundays, fellowship them in to the congregation through baptism and the right hand of fellowship. And in my 20-some years of pastoring there, we had more retention of those reentry persons who stayed in this community as a result of support services we provided them through connection with other organizations and those services that we've had in the church. Also, I come from a family with a history of those who have had backgrounds in the incarceration system. And if we all are honest there, but for the grace of God, I just did not get caught. So I'm glad to be here for this conversation.
Awesome.
I did get caught and got out of it, I should say.
Awesome. Yeah, but it's awesome to have you here with us, Pastor Davis, and we're so appreciative to what you mean to our community and the wonderful work that you and the wonderful people of the Trinity Baptist Church are doing, feeding those and being there, answering the call that Jesus made to us to take care of those who are less fortunate and feed the hungry and clothe the naked. So job well done, brother. And it's awesome to have you here with us today. Last but not least, Pastor Potts has already deemed him as the mayor. And so I don't know of anyone who works harder at pulling our community together and answering those calls from those voices that are in distress, those individuals who are in need. And so I'm following his lead because he's been doing this for a very long time, and it's not for form or fashion, but it's definitely his passion and his calling. So Pastor Lamar, please share with us today who you are and what you're doing in our city.
I'm humbled, Dr. Fitzgerald, and all of my brethren and sisters that's on this call. I've been pastoring here in the city for 24 years, south side of Columbus, Family Missionary Baptist Church. And I grew up in Columbus on the east side, went to East High School, but been pastoring since 1997. And ever since 1997, it was my passion to do outreach. And we've been doing outreach, connecting with the courts, mainly with the juvenile courts and with the jails, county jails, and being clergy in both of them. My ministers being clergy in both of them. We started what is called Ministries for Movement. And Ministries for Movement is a movement to try to change the conditions of life on the South Side. We say we are the quarter of the South Side. Anything come to the South Side, we got to know about, and we've got to give you a pass, whether you're gonna come and stay on the South Side or whether you're allowed to be on the South Side. And don't nothing happen on the South Side unless we know about it. I've developed a relationship with many people who are in prison. There's those who I've counsel to turn themselves in, and they're doing time now. I stay in contact with them, and we really try to move our movement. The Ministry for Movement is a movement. It's derivative from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where O.W. Gurley founded Black Wall Street, and he founded on the 4 principles of resource, relationship, reviving, and redemption. We take those same principles and those same colors, and we incorporate that into reentry. So everyone that comes out, we try to help them with resource. We try to help them in relationships, try to help them with reviving, and mainly we try to help them with redemption and understand with the foundation of God, everything can change. And we as a church like to wrap our arms around them and advocate for them to do the best that we can. And, that's me.
Well, awesome, Pastor Lamar. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule. I know that you're always being pulled in different directions, but it means the world to me that you took time to be here today, because there's individuals like you who bring credibility to the stance that we're taking today as we pause and bring to the forefront the importance of the reentry work. Our theme for this week is Cast Not Thy Stone, and that's taken from John chapter 8, verses 1 through 7. And for preachers who don't have their sermon for Sunday, this would be a great sermon topic. But it's the story, where they bring this woman who's caught in adultery to Jesus, and Jesus is writing in the sand. And when you do a little deeper study, it tells you that he's catagraphing. He's actually writing out their individual sins. And then he says to them, they ask her, what should we do with her? And Jesus replied, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. And so we use that today because when we really take a close look at reentry, there's not very many people who have taken that bold step like all of you to say that I'm going to stand with those who've made mistakes. I'm going to stand with those who need support, whose voices have been taken away, who need a voice. I'm going to stand with those who paid their debt to society, who deserve a second chance to live the best life that God has planned and designed and purposed for them. And there's this negative connotation and perception that the community has of reentry. And so I want to raise a provocative question today. And I want you all to give me your input on this topic. Why aren't more people from the faith community? I'm just talking about the faith community. Why are there not more pastors, ministers, preachers, evangelists? Why aren't there more individuals who have engaged in the work of reentry? And how do we change the perception of what reentry is all about? How do we remove the fear from the community for those who are coming back into their communities, who have been transformed, whose lives have been changed, who are not the same individuals that they were when they left, but they came back better? Okay, how do we change the perception of the community? And why aren't there more people of faith involved in this work of reentry?
Pastor Fitzgerald, if I may.
Yes, sir.
Let me break that down into 2 separate questions, rather than it being conjunction question.
Okay.
I will
yes,
address your first one first to the best of my ability. You ask, why are there not more faith leaders involved in reentry? I think the question ought to be to celebrate those who are involved. Everyone's, if we look at what Jesus said about the body of Christ, everybody has their role and their passion, but we all work together within the body. And one of the challenges we have is oftentimes folk who are not gifted to do something attempt to do it. and for example, Brother Antoine is gifted because he has experience in the system. Pastor Lamar is gifted because he has relationship with persons who have been a part of the system. it's not a passion for me, but it's a part of the arms of my ministry, because I have a passion and love for people and their continuous redemptive life, regardless of where they come from. If it's from the streets, if it's from homelessness, if it's from divorce, if it's from family issues, even if it's from being incarcerated, that's a part of the redemptive process that I'm committed to helping them out. So I think we need to celebrate those and we pastors need to be mature enough that if we're not equipped to minister to a person's needs, say to them, listen, go to Christian Valley. They have a strong reentry program there that can help you in your life, or be mature enough to share and partner in ministries that you go over there and get the assistance. For example, we have our BYOB, which is Breaking the Yoke of Bondage, AAA, and several persons from the community come to our AA. They're not members of my church, but they get the services that we provide. That's one thing. I think we need to celebrate those who are doing it and recognize.
Pastor Davis, let me take a page from Kahari and Nahari. Okay, let me take a page from Kahari. Okay, we're not here today to celebrate those that are engaged in the work. Okay, we're here today to ask the question, why isn't everybody engaged?
Because everybody.
Hold on one second.
Yep, I'm asking you a question.
Hold on one second. Let me finish.
Let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question.
One
because
second.
Everybody's not.
I'm gonna give you a chance to ask your question. One second.
Everybody's not able to do it.
Everybody's not equipped to do accounting, but you go out and hire an accountant if you want to build onto your church. If you want to do something for your church, you go out and you employ the resources that you need to do the work in the church. Why won't you go out and employ people to come in and do reentry work? I took that from Kahari. Let's talk about it.
Wait a minute, Brother Cheney, did you not hear me say that pastors who are not equipped to do it should recommend their members to pastors who are? Did I just not say that?
Okay.
I heard that.
Okay, I just want to make sure you heard that.
Can I just
Dr.
add
Washington, did you hear that? See, okay, and everybody on here,
I heard it.
for those of you that are on the webinar, you all need to know that Pastor Fitzgerald and I also have a Donnie and Victor relationship.
Right.
So we're gonna
but what I want to do, I want to stimulate conversations that we don't normally have.
Oh yeah,
because reentry affects every community the same way that sin does, and so we need representation in every corridor of our city to be able to deal. Pastor Lamar should not be the only person, and Pastor Potts in that part of Columbus that are engaged in reentry.
Dr. Fitzgerald, can I say something?
Yes,
can I just add something? Back probably about 7 years ago, the Baptist Ministers Alliance, which makes up members of ministers of all of our churches, we sent there's probably about 30 ministers from every church, from Trinity, from Pop's church, but it was a Christian church at the time. We all went down to Orient, and we registered because everybody wanted to take part in reentry. They got us our IDs and everything. Then we went on to take those same IDs to go to the different organizations. They didn't even honor them. There's so many hoops and everything that you have to go through. So wait a minute. If we went to Orient,
we make it clear, Pastor. Make it clear, Lamar, when you say they didn't honor it, meaning the system.
Right, the system.
Honor it.
We went to Orient, and Orient is supposed to be the hub to all of the institutions. We went through all of the backgrounds and everything. Had our license and everything shown. Got our picture ID. I went from Orient to Lebanon, and they wouldn't even honor. They wouldn't even honor the same ID that I got at Orient, and it's all in the Ohio system. So when you reach roadblocks and everything like that, it frustrates you. Say, wait a minute, look, Amy, I ain't got to go through all this. So it was about 30 of us. So I'm saying I think there need to be some kind of collaboration with the prison system. Being a little bit lax to the churches, so then the churches can get, when you got to send people, and people got to go through hoops and have their background, go through some kind of federal investigation and all these things just to go and minister. You know, I think it makes it difficult when people say, well, you know, I don't need that. Let those who's getting paid do that, because if they got to go through all that. I just think when people are volunteering, there ought to be some kind of access to do the thing that you want us to do.
Well, I think the climate of our culture has changed in such a way that the institutions, the federal government, which is who I work closely with, the federal courts, they become more friendly and more inviting to those individuals who really want to help make effective change in the community. So I think we have
this was a state this was a state institution. So
yeah, but this is, I think, different. You know, to everything there is a season, and we're all men and women of faith, and we believe that. And I just believe that this is our season to raise the awareness of the importance of reentry and take advantage of the opportunities to engage with those who are recently being released from incarceration. We have a federal judge. Every month I meet with the federal judges, the chief federal judge, who is now Elgin Marbley, and then former Chief Judge Edmund Sargis, and all of the federal probation officers. And we work the federal caseloads in terms of reentry, providing resources and opportunities for those men and women to get their lives back on track. And so I believe this district has become a little more friendlier and a little more welcoming to that work. And so how do we ride this wave and raise the awareness and get everybody on board? Because I believe you're absolutely right. It's going to take a collective effort in order for us to have the biggest impact. But how do we do that? How do we get everybody together? And how do we deal with this issue of reentry, helping men and women who've paid their debt to society get their lives back on track in the most efficient and effective way? Counselor Cheney. And then Dr.
I'm going to defer to Sister Washington, and then I'll speak.
Okay, Sister Washington.
That's okay.
And Brother Cheney.
And I agree with Dr. Davis regarding you have to be passionate about it. You have to be called to it. You have to be sensitive to the needs of those you're attempting to minister to. You have to be able to do it without judgment, right? And without pity. Because some people come to it with different motivations. It's not necessarily purity of heart. It's, oh, look at these people. It's almost like a pet project, or they're looking down on them. And so I think we need to be mindful of that. Also, I think oftentimes we may not be as effective at driving home the point that while we're attempting to serve individuals who have committed a crime, that there are many individuals who have committed crimes who just haven't been caught. But if we take it from the Christian perspective, when we talk about faith and the fact that, yes, we're sinners saved by grace, we hopefully are sinning less, but we still sin nevertheless, then judgment should be taken out of out as a factor. Because although, for example, if I don't have a lascivious nature, but I gossip, God's looking at that the same, right? Sin is sin. He's loving the person, but he doesn't love the sin. The Bible says he hates the sin. So I think sometimes people can't reconcile the crime or the nature of what has gotten an individual in a position with loving them nevertheless. We know how to do it when it's our family. We know how to do it when it's our cousin, when it's our father, when it's our mother, but we don't seem to practice it across the board openly. And so I think that's one of the guiding things. Also, you mentioned resources.
Well, you better hold
Perhaps we need a database that everyone can tap into that is engaging this to know where those resources are. Be more effective, be more efficient, save time. Too often, we organize individually, this nonprofit, that nonprofit,
Okay.
but we're not
I
working in
was looking for another
collaboration.
color blouse,
And so
but
everyone
I
knows
got
what
they had.
each of them is doing in their nook and cranny, but you can strike a bigger blow to a system if we collaborate. And oftentimes collaboration is one of the problems as well. And then the last thing I was going to say is this. Even when it comes to what Pastor Fitzgerald was talking about in terms of obstacles, you're doing everything that you're told to do to even have access to the individuals that you're trying to minister to, but the system doesn't work with you. Again, we have to go back to that foundation. White supremacy. We go back to the foundation of the dehumanizing of African Americans in particular. We get down to, yes, you get the right to vote, but then there's always these impediments: literacy tests, grandfather clause. It's always something new. As soon as you learn the game, they change it, which is in part why I got my PhD in what I have it in, because that's even personally what I learned. Every time they elevate it, they create another block. And so I think we also have to be very intentional and educated, and you have to call a thing a thing. The system that we have now when we deal with the prison industry, because it's an industry, is for profit. It is not designed anymore, hasn't been for a long time, for real, genuine, earnest rehabilitation. They're not interested in really having individuals heal. They're not interested in them being whole. They make money off of them being broken, and the problems that systemically really are the vicissitudes of slavery, racism, even gender discrimination and class. And the system perpetuates it.
But wouldn't that be the reason why we're here?
It is the reason why we're here.
Because of a system that perhaps is failing. And then we become that next level of support and help that prevents that individual from failing after leaving a failing system.
And so the individuals that attempt to, with the help of God,
because we have to understand this, and then we're going to go to Brother Dr. Cheney, that hurt people. Okay, listen to what I'm saying. When people are hurting, the hurting continues because hurt people continue to hurt other people. And so what we have to do is help hurt people get healed so that the hurting can stop. And so that's why we're passionate about what it is that we do. Dr. Cheney, we're going to keep this going because I want to come back to Pastor Davis because he's got this look on his face like you cut me off and I had a second part to my question, and I want him to be able, I want to show him the respect of being able, letting him to re-engage us with that second point. But Dr. Cheney, talk to us, please.
Well, I don't know if you can hear me.
Hear you.
I'm having something saying about my internet not being stable.
We got you, Doc.
Okay. I mean, as a practical matter, I think that we have to teach and train. We have to bring people into the fold. That's people that are being re-entered and those that are going to help to train them and bring them through the system. It's kind of an each one teach one. As we begin to acquire knowledge about process, as we begin to connect to these agencies and organizations that are tasked to serve our community, we have to be a part of introducing others, bringing them into that process, training them into that process, and then showing them that by committing themselves to that process, there is a benefit that's across the community. Because re-entry is reclamation, re-entry is restoration, re-entry is redemption. And all of those things are consistent with Christian work. And so we gotta get the message out. If we're gonna do God's work, re-entry is a part of that work.
All right, thank you, Pastor Fisher.
So just 1 second, Pastor, and I'm coming right to you. So Dr. Cheney, what you're suggesting then is, in terms of us training individuals to help train those that are coming home. You know, I noticed that our city is flooded with all different types of programs, all different types of initiatives And but very rarely do I see us come together as a collective body to actually do the work. How much more effective do you think we could be at reentry if we were all picking from the same tree?
I think that the work will be easier, and because it's the old question of the harvest is vast, but the laborers are few. And so if we can get hands and feet to the field to do the work behind a common purpose and plan, then the work is going to be greater, then the yield is going to be greater. And that's what it should be about.
All right. Dr. Davis.
Well, I got a few things. Pastor Fitzgerald, over in the chat, you've got some questions coming from those who are watching us on Facebook Live. So when I finish my statement, I'll give those to you so we can address those, okay? You on mute. You on mute, Pastor Fitzgerald.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I'm not able. Let me see if
I'll help you. I'll help you.
Okay, so do me a favor, Pastor.
Yes.
Would you facilitate some of those questions for us?
Yeah, I got you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, let me say this. I want to ride off what my sister, Dr. Washington, said. One of the challenges with any ministry that occurs in the church is, one, that the visionary or either pastor has some understanding and a pricking of their soul to do it. You can't expect a pastor who doesn't understand to be even compassionate or understanding, like if you just think every sin is a sin and everybody going to hell. And so that's one thing. Then there needs to be an education, and Pastor Lamar has always gotten on us pastors of understanding our judicial system. For example, the judges that my friend Pastor Fitzgerald deals with are appointed for lifetime. They don't have to seek out the election of many of the people that we serve. And as a matter of fact, they don't even respond to us like those who are elected. You can't even, now you can get to them, Fitzgerald, but many of us, you call them, they don't even respond to us because they are appointed for a lifetime.
That's why you need to call me.
They approach it, but let me finish.
Okay.
But anybody who's calling a judge who's serving the people, the judge ought to respond. I'm just saying they ought to respond, because ultimately their dollars, our tax dollars, are paying them. So you got to understand that county system, that state system, that district system, that you got to understand that judicial system. So I wanted to say that too. Also, we have to understand that the penal system in its original intent was not put in place to rehabilitate. It was put in place to punish. And that is an overarching understanding of the penal system. And therefore, rehabilitation always fell back into the hands of the church, the family, and the community, which is what we're here talking about today. So I just wanted to say that. Let me raise these questions so that we can address them. Question from Facebook Live: did you feel welcomed by your faith community after you came out of prison? That's I'm sure that's directed to Pastor Antoine Potts.
Okay, I can answer that. Absolutely. Okay. Well, the thing about it was, I was a loving individual. I wasn't anyone who was malice or anything like that. So was I welcomed as far as with family and friends? Of course. But people that didn't know me, where I was just a number or a sheet on a paper when I was trying to get a job or something like that, that's a whole different animal there, because I believe that we got to teach these young men and young women coming out of prison that they have to rebuild their characters in the community by doing well and doing positive. So no, they didn't. My family and friends, of course, but the community as a whole at that time, it wasn't really welcoming. We were still at the point where you were looked at, frowned upon if you went to prison. So no, but as of it's a new day now. So it's up to the church. Thank God that we got the church that's circling back around and will be opening arms and helping bring them and present them back to the community. That's what we have to do. Help them better themselves so they can present themselves back to the community, rebuild it, and productive citizens. So that's yeah.
So Pastor, I want to direct this question to Pastor Lamar.
Yes, sir.
Pastor Lamar, you've served as the president of the Baptist Pastors Conference, and you've been, one of our leaders, one of the people that have always been out in the forefront in the religious community, especially as it relates to social injustice and civil unrest and all these different categories. How do we, as a religious community, make the church more inviting for individuals who are coming home from incarceration? And how do we do that in a way that doesn't make spectacles of them, that doesn't make them feel less valued than anyone else? How do we make our churches more comfortable and receptive to individuals who are coming back home from incarceration?
Well, I think, as Pastor David said, you have to build relationships. Those who coming out of prison, and when they come to church, number one, you can't come to church with a chip on your shoulder. You can't come to church like, okay, everyone's looking at you, because they don't know you didn't been to prison unless they know you. Okay, but you come to church, you can't come with a chip on your shoulder, and you got to come to be actually engaged and involved in the church. And once you get, all churches got men's ministry, and they got things for men, they got things for women. You just got to come, you got to be dedicated and want to be committed. Oftentimes, those who come out of prison, they got to want to leave all that prison stuff behind. I've got some who came out, I know before they went in, and they still got some of that slickness in them. And I'm saying, bro, listen, game recognized game. You want me to try to help you. Okay, I need to get my social security card. I need to get my driver's ID. I need to get this, that, and the other. And I know if you got a probation officer, a parole officer, he's supposed to help you with those things. But no, I go ahead and give him something. I said, now, next time I see you, I want to see exactly what I paid you for. And then you don't see them. You're like, okay, all right, bro. They got to lose that game, number one. And they got to come wanting to be a part of the church. Not come for the church to always, because the church is going to help them, but they can't come looking for the church to do everything for them.
Right.
And let me just add this, Fitzgerald. Does the system want the church to help? Because when the church comes in and help, there's a whole lot of agencies and stuff that, the church going to cross over doing the work that they're supposed to be doing and the work that they getting paid to do. So do they really want the church to come and help? Because if the church come and the church is doing it voluntarily, then they don't need those who's doing it. So I think there's some things going on that we have to make sure we're all on the same page. We all trying to do this thing for those who's coming home.
And Pastor Fitzgerald.
Yes, sir.
Pastor Lamar has talked about how they look at the church, but the church has to do a self-exam. The church, synagogue, and any other organization has to do a real look at themselves in the ministry, and their personality and what they seek to do and perpetuate in the community where they are. If a church seeks to be the church where all of the political folk go to, and if it seeks to be the silk stocking church or the educated church or the holy church, or we've got to do an examination of what the Lord, the Bible, calls the church to be, and put on that tapestry when we do ministry. Oftentimes the church takes on the personality of the community where it exists. And so we've got to make sure that the church is being who she is in all of this, so that when the outsiders come to her, we can respond appropriately. The church can no longer be looked at a place to seek votes for political support, because oftentimes what Pastor Lamar was referencing, when COVID shut down Franklin County Children's Services and people could not apply, they came to our doors to get assistance. Right. And it's always going to be like, the church is always going to be the main social service agency for us. And I believe that reentry is part of social services.
Let's be perfectly clear about this. That's why the church exists. The church is a place of restoration. Okay. And that's Christ's whole plan and purpose for his people, was to restore us back unto him. And so as we continue to live out what we've been called to do, our responsibility is to restore in every area. So if it's incarceration, if it's sin, whatever the nature or the problem is, our job is to restore. So as the church of the living God, how do we, or what do we do to make ourselves more attractive to those who are being released from incarceration? And how do we prepare ourselves for those who are coming, who have, watch this, a different set of needs than those who regularly attend every single week? Because remember now, this is a whole different dynamic. Pastor Lamar said, I got to leave my prison mentality, at home when I come to church. But I mean, that's easier said than done when I've been incarcerated for 15 and 20 years, and I've been on the system's routine, and I'm coming home. I don't have a support base. I don't have anything. I'm struggling to get a job. People view me as being angry, but society has made me angry, and and this anger has forced me to a place that's supposed to that I hear provides healing, because it's the house of God. So how do I prepare myself, and how does the church prepare itself for this individual who's confused, who's bitter, who's angry, who's upset, who needs to be healed, who needs to be hugged, who needs to be loved, who needs to be told that, listen, you made some mistakes, but you're not the only one. And God is no respecter of person, and so how do we get that message out? Dr. Cheney, and then we're going to come back to Pastor Lamar. And then I think Sister Washington has something to say. She keeps licking her lips like she got something that she wants to say. So we're going to come right back to her after that.
Well, I say we start from the proposition that in my old church, they used to say, as fishers of men, first we catch the fish, right? And then we clean the fish, right? So the catching of the fish is a part. We are fishers of men. We're casting our nets wide, and we're looking to bring people in. And I think once we get them in, if we serve them, which is love in action, right? If we meet the needs that they have, if we serve them in an effective way, and a part of that serving is not everybody needs the same thing, right? Not everybody coming out is coming from the same space or place or mindset. And so we have to have ways to start to help them tell us what they need. And then some of it will be work that we do in the church. But then the next piece will be, as they say, connecting them to those community agencies that are being paid to serve them, and then making sure that those agencies serve in the way that they should. Because as was said, our tax dollars are funding this work. And so we got to hold them accountable. So I think that can happen.
Great.
I yield to Dr. Washington. I'd come after Dr. Washington.
All right.
I was only going to add one thing. I think as the church is thinking about all of the needs without making assumptions, because as it's been said, everyone will have different needs depending on their skill set, depending on their support system, depending on their level of knowledge, even the level of knowledge that they have gained while they've been incarcerated. right? Some people really do engage heavily in terms of taking opportunity to learn, to study, even to become like a legal representative in prison. So I think we have to make sure we've stripped ourselves of the assumptions of what individual needs would be, but also we need to strike a balance and make sure that we're not enabling, because
Good.
it's hard work that they will have to honestly do,
Right.
and we can be supportive, we can assist in that, but the honest truth is they will have to do the work just like every other individual has to do the work, and sometimes the work can be exhausting
Right.
to get to the place that we desire to be, depending on how much we have to unlearn,
Right.
right? Things that we've learned that we thought were working for us, but they don't work for us because it doesn't get us in the position we want to be in. And so even as an educator and in community service, what I learned, it's the most difficult thing that I struggle with is trying to teach people patterns of behavior or ways to maneuver that is counter to what they have learned before, because they were taught it works, it produces a certain outcome, and it doesn't provide the fruitful life that we really want long term. And so enabling can be problematic, and we have to gauge that, and that's individually, case by case, because what's enabling for one person may be a legitimate need for another individual.
Great. Pastor Lamar, right? I want to say this before you come, because I know you're going to have a rebuttal on what I'm about to say as well. But you said earlier, that game's no game. We know when we being game, but guess what? The individual who's just coming home from prison knows when he's being game too. If I come to a place that's supposed to be a place where I'm supposed to be able to get some help and to get some refuge, where people are supposed to be sensitive because of what I've been through, and I come there and the preacher don't want to help me, but the preacher wants to condemn me and preach sermons about me, but never reach his arms out to help me. Game recognized game. So as clergy and as ministers of the gospel, we have to be accountable as well, because they can see right through the shams that may be being presented.
Well, let me share with you, and I'm gonna stand up for the clergy.
Okay, I want you to.
I'm
not trying to tear us down.
Listen, just because I'm preaching doesn't got Fitzgerald's name on it. Number one. Okay, so if I'm talking about, when I say the demoniac of Gadara was locked in his own prison, that's not saying Donnie Fitzgerald was locked in prison.
Yeah, but if you say he was locked in there for 4 years and I just got out in this 4 years, you talking about me?
No, listen. but here's where I think the situation is. We have to develop the relationship prior to them getting out.
Okay.
So the churches have to develop a relationship, whether it's with Lucasville, whether it was Marion, and we have to do a better job with the parole officers, and the parole officers need to connect with the churches. So then the church's prison ministry will go into that institution. So you see somebody before they get out, and you see the things that they have need of. So then when they come, you invite them, just like we did a thing with DYS. And for every zip code, we made sure the zip code connected with the churches. So if somebody was getting out, they got the zip code, so DYS would connect the individual with the pastor of whatever church it was. The same thing we need to do with whatever institution. I work closely with Lebanon institution because I got a lot of people that I know that's in Lebanon. But we have to develop a relationship before they get out. So we see the things they need before they get out. And then we have to have the access or the ability to reach out, because if they're trying to get a job, we already got a list of where they're going to get jobs at. The main thing they need is jobs and housing. When they get out, if they ain't got no place to stay, they ain't got no job, all the rest of it going to come down. So we've got to make sure we got access to, whether it's to CMHA or whatever, there's housing. And then whether it's through whatever company it is, there's jobs. Once you get them two things and look, okay, now here's what I need you to do. I need you to work on your spirituality. So I need you to be in church, need you to be under the word, just like the demoniac of Gadara. He wanted to follow, once he got delivered, he wanted to follow Jesus.
Right.
So he wanted to stay in church. Not just come to church when you want to give something, come to church when you want to give something. So we've got to teach them how to have the mindset. Okay, bro, we're going to help you, but you got to help yourself and you got to help others. Once you come with that mindset, then we can help each other. But if you just come with the mindset with your hand out, once you get what you want, you gone. And trust me, I've seen it too often.
After you catch them and then clean them up, because that's the systematic process that Jesus placed before us. And then, you know, prayerfully they'll
I understand.
But
understand, to catch them, you got to have the right bait.
Okay.
You got to know what they're eating, because they ain't eating just anything.
We got 5 minutes, and you already did your introduction, and you got your third point that you're about to make in your sermon that you but listen, this is great. I wish we had more time to really deal with this. I want to say two things, and then I'm going to put it back on you all to close us out. I said once, because we run a tremendous reentry program out of Christian Valley through the federal in relationship with the federal courts. We've actually established the same program, our reentry program, Untying the Knots, in Cincinnati and in Dayton, Ohio, with the federal courts, with everybody from the federal courts in this Southern District on board with what we are doing. And so it's been a wonderful relationship. And I said to my congregation that this reentry work that we're doing with the courts can't be the biggest ministry in our church. And you know what God said to me? Why not? Why can't reentry work be the biggest ministry in the church? Because it's changing the lives of individuals who are trying to reintegrate themselves back into the community. And if they reintegrate themselves back properly, it makes us all better. Okay. So if I'm a restored citizen, I just got out of prison and I'm watching this feed and I'm listening to this dialogue that's taking place with all of these wonderful minds that are present today. And you had one chance to say something to me that would encourage me to continue on this path of reentry and reintegration. What would you say, Dr. Washington?
I'd say come join us.
Okay.
I'd say come and join us and help us. Let us help you. And then we're going to teach you to serve, which will get you to work in the things that you want to and need to do in this community.
Amen. Who's next? We got 4 minutes, 3 minutes.
I would suggest, if possible, if we're building the relationship internally before they re-enter, to work at building a strategic plan so that they can itemize the things that they need. They can itemize resources that they know are available. They can identify questions that they don't have answers to, and then they know who they're engaging with immediately once they re-enter. Just to have a plan. There's a saying, a failure to plan is a plan for failure.
Awesome.
Pastor Fitzgerald, I would tell them, look, your pain is our pain. You've got to come and be a part of us. If you come be a part of us, we've got an app, and I need y'all, if you take the time out, Google it or download it. It's called M for M app. And on that app, we got all of the resources and everything that they might need, and that we can help them out. So just come and help us, come see us, and we're gonna help.
Type it in the chat. Type your web in that
Okay.
chat. All right, Dr. Davis.
I'll go ahead and say, yep. I am a living example. I can show you the way to change your life. Reach out to us, from getting jobs to getting your life, your background clear with expungement. Let me help you and show you the blueprint of changing your life and getting it back in order.
Awesome. Dr. Davis.
And finally, what I would say is we're all restored from something. We're all in the process of being restored. Let's get restored together so that when we reach where we need to go, our lives will be an example to the kingdom of God's glory in all of us.
Awesome. And in closing, what I would say is we are our brothers' keepers. We are our sisters' keepers. Iron sharpens iron. and we're in this together, and we have to be there for one another. And therefore, I would tell anyone who does not understand about reentry, who needs to be educated about reentry, I would tell them what the theme of our session was today. Cast not thy stone. People who live in glass houses ought not throw stones. Thank you all for being with us today. This was awesome. This was awesome. You all have been wonderful. This is a great panel. I believe that the Lord orchestrated our being here together. And I'm looking forward to working with all of you as we continue to try to empower and impact the lives of those who are transitioning back home from incarceration. God bless you, and thank you all for being with us today.